In 1984, Russian AI scientist Alexei Pajitnov was tasked with testing the Electronica 60 computer. He decided to create simple software and created a puzzle game with tetraminos. The premise was simple. Tetraminos would descend from the top of the screen and the player can freely rotate them as they descend. When a full line is completed, it will disappear. Clearing 4 lines at the same time is called the Tetris. The word Tetris itself derives from the Russian word for 4. When the tetraminos reach the top, the game ends. This game became extremely popular in Russia and it was soon ported to many Russian computers. The game quickly made its way to Europe and was finally released in the United States in 1987 for IBM PCs. It made its way to many other computers such as the Amiga, Atari ST, and Apple II, published by a company called Elektronortechnika. In January 1988, Tetris was shown at the Consumer Electronics Show. In attendance was President of Nintendo of America Minoru Arakawa, and like many others before him, he became addicted. Many handheld systems came packaged with puzzle games, so Nintendo created their own handheld. Arakawa and other Nintendo reps agreed it was the perfect packing game.
This is when Tetris became a household name. Everyone who owned a Game Boy owned this game, and it helped push Nintendo's handheld over superior hardware such as the Lynx and Game Gear.
The Game Boy version of Tetris is a classic, not just because of the gameplay, but because of the music. The Type A music has become ingrained in many gamers' memories and persists as one of the all-time classic game themes. All the basic gameplay elements are there with no extra tidbits. There's an intricate synergy between Tetris and the Game Boy. People would buy a Game Boy just because it came with Tetris, thus boosting the Game Boy to be the third best-selling game system of all time. Hank Rogers, founder of the Tetris company, said that Tetris made Game Boy and Game Boy made Tetris. It was the perfect platform for the game, so that you can carry it around. That's how it caught on.
I imagine many people in the 80s and 90s wasting their weekend away with this.
There were 2 versions of Tetris released for the NES. Firstly, Atari under the Tengen brand released Tetris, the Soviet mind game. This version is relatively uncommon with only 100,000 copies in circulation. Unfortunately, while this is considered the superior version, it is very expensive.
Considering this game came out during the Cold War, that probably wasn't the best tagline. I bet many parents avoided this game because they thought there was a bomb inside. The licensed version wasn't any better either.
Tengen was forced to stop making their version, so Nintendo made their own like they did for the Game Boy. This is very similar to the Game Boy version, but with one key difference, the music. As opposed to the famous Game Boy theme, the NES version uses this Nutcracker music that I used in my previous video. I mean, they're both Russian, but besides that, there's no correlation. Gameplay is standard, but there's an Easter egg with several Nintendo characters such as Luigi, Pit, Link, and a really poor-looking Bowser playing an accordion. To do this, you have to beat the game on the hardest difficulty, Stage 9, Level 5 in B-Type. I don't really like B-Type, and so I don't have the patience for this, so this screenshot I found is all you get. Nintendo made their own sequel for the NES. It was called Tetris 2 in the West, but known as Tetris Flash in Japan. This game is strikingly similar to Dr. Mario, and even came out after it. So Nintendo made a Tetris-esque game, and then made a Tetris game based on said Tetris-esque game. It's like the Street Fighter movie game. This is inferior to Dr. Mario. Remember in Dr. Mario when the pieces came down in groups of 2? Yeah, here they still come down in groups of 4, and the screen fills up quickly. Although you only have to clear lines of 3, the game still feels very cluttered. The backgrounds are also Nazca lines for some reason. Let's go skip to the last level and see what it's like.
Yeah, I'm not doing this. Next up is Hatris. Tetris with hats.
2 of 3 hats descend, and you have to stack them in sets of 5. When a hat is dropped on top of a mismatching hat, the top hat has to be cleared before the bottom hat. In order to successfully win the game, you have to arrange them like this, where every hat is adjacent to every other hat. Once you've done that, the game's a no-brainer, as long as you don't mess up. I'm not the greatest fan of this game, nor am I a fan of Nintendo's version, Yoshi. I am a Super Yoshi fan, but I'm not a super fan of the game Yoshi. It was a good effort, Alexei, but not your best.
It would be weird if hats just started. That was weird.
There have been many other Tetris games, such as Tetris Plus. This is when the Tetris game started to have a story. Seemingly, Professor Andy Capp, with a mustache, and his green-haired assistant are searching the world looking for ancient runes. What are these runes? Tetraminos, obviously. The story mode mostly involves clearing the blocks so the professor can reach the bottom of the stage. The standard Tetris is pretty fun. You can choose single player or 2-player, but it doesn't really matter since 2 players can play single player mode. Next up is Tetris Evolution for the Xbox 360. This one is pretty good. The music remix is amazing and the gameplay itself is really fun.
It does feature the infamous infinite spin, which allows you to keep rotating the Tetraminos even when they hit the bottom, but I believe switching to classic will solve that.
Overall, this is my favorite version so far. If you can get your hands on it, I encourage you to get it. The most recent game in the series is Puyo Puyo Tetris. It's a crossover with Sega's Puyo Puyo series, which involves falling Puyos, which disappear when 4 are joined in any formation. This version was released in 2014 in Japan, but the Nintendo Switch version was localized, and believe me, you can feel the Japanese influence.
Sega! Tetris. Hey, Carby! Looks like we got warped to another dimension! Goo-goo! Arl? Carbuncle? I don't understand. Hi, Ringo. How's it going? Hey, Amity. Let me guess. You two were in a Puyo Puyo battle, huh? Oh, just blocks? That's fine. Wait, that's not fine! How should I know? They're really coming down all around us, Ringo!
Well, there is a standard Tetris mode, which is fine, and a standard Puyo Puyo mode, which is also fine. They're not terrible, but they're not the best versions either. Fusion mode is where it's really at. It's essentially Puyo Puyo, but occasionally you can get Tetris blocks which will crush Puyos underneath them. Getting a line of these blocks will clear them. I would recommend playing this with another person because the computer always owns you.
I need to study more.
Overall, Tetris has become a cultural icon. It has made its way into nearly every medium and has been ingrained as a staple of our culture. Its surprising balance of simplicity and complexity allows it to appeal to casual players and record setters alike, and I believe this is an important component. Casual gamers can easily get hooked into this game, but the mathematics of how it works may perhaps be even more intriguing. And Tetris is not gone. There are plans to make a Tetris movie which will be a sci-fi thriller. Even more unbelievable might be its $80 million budget. Hopefully it turns out better than Pixels, but I doubt it.
But whether you're looking for a game to pass the time, or you're looking for an intricate challenge, Tetris is for you. Can't even wait to see how bad that movie's gonna fail.